creates offense?
Defense.
What creates defense?
Offense.
No, the goal in the back of the net.
It's been a half decade of dominance in the conference from this golf team, Thomas. You have them in the C tier. What are we doing?
I'm
4 out of the last
expecting a
5 years they've won the
championship.
championship.
Talk about the present stuff. And, well, actually, I'm going to talk about the past right now.
At least if you're going to pick a trap game, pick the right ones.
Little fast footwork. I know your feet don't move that fast, man.
Brady, that's all flash, no cash. She didn't net it in the back of the net. That's not even a
What are
goal.
you doing pulling out Ryan?
Brady,
Are you ready for some debate? Because Bobcat Breakdown starts right now.
Welcome to tonight's episode of Bobcat Breakdown for our last episode of the fall semester. I'm your host, Meg Buckley, and alongside me are my analysts, Brianna Trachtenberg and Heaton. Are you guys excited to see some snow in the coming weeks?
I can't say I'm exactly excited for the snow. I'm a more warm weather person, but I am excited for the show tonight.
I don't know if I'm excited for snow, but I am excited for debate tonight.
I guess I'm alone on that. Well, we've got a fun and festive show planned for tonight. To start off the debate, the Quinnipiac volleyball team fell to Ryder in the MAC semifinals with a final score of 3-1. This makes it the third year in a row the team has missed out on the championship game. As their season comes to a close, is the Bobcats' window shut for MAC championship contention? Brianna, you're the volleyball beat reporter. Start us off.
Look, right now, at this very moment, I would say yes, they're probably not going to win the MAC next year, but I think it all depends on recruitment. Coaches have to deal with seniors leaving every single year. It's a constant cycle for collegiate coaches. It all depends on who they are going to bring in next. Yes, the senior class is huge. They're losing Elena Giacomini, Dawn Young, Mary Ganesh, Ginevra Giovanni, and Milena Silver, who've all made huge impacts on his team. But the team isn't over yet. They're still going to keep going. They have a bright future. They have Carolina Negron-Diaz, who who was on the All-MAC rookie team last season. They have Vittoria Tonelli, who's been a first year, who's really has shown some great strides. Same thing with Azia Belli, she's a middle blocker. Neither of them was starting, but they both made an impact whenever they stepped on the court. While they may be in a little bit of a rebuilding phase right now, I do think that maybe not next year, but the year after, they can win the MAC championship.
I agree with you on the point that, yes, I do think their window is shut. Everyone's gone. They're going to lack the depth next season. So, when you look at who they have that is returning, they don't really have backups. So you have Clara Olszewska as your setter. You have Carolina Negron-Diaz as your libero. And I'm honestly, if you can rely on her for a full season again, you have Leilani Kaijusta and Vittoria Tonelli, and you have Azia Belli, and then the Uzbek twins, who you don't really know how they're gonna adapt to playing a full season and playing, having that much playing time. So you lost, like you mentioned, all the key players that they lost, and that's what made the team what it is and what made them contenders. So it's just a lot of the question marks of who's going to fill out the roster next season.
Yes, but like I said, it all goes back to recruitment and who they're going to bring in. And yes, we might not have seen as many of those players out on the court for as long for their minutes, but it's because at their first years, and Carola, she's only a sophomore, so it's just going to take time for them to mature and get there. And next season, I really do think that this team will be in a better point than everyone's thinking.
All right. Well, keeping in Burnt Con, the volleyball team looks like they are going to be having some roster turnover, as you guys mentioned. There are a total of 6 graduating upperclassmen who make up 40% of the Bobcats' total roster. Guys, out of all the graduating class, who was the most impactful during their time at Quinnipiac? Ava, you start this one.
It's the easy answer, but I think it's the easy answer for a reason, and that's Dawn Ganesh. To me, she's one of the best players this program has ever seen. She was just named MAC Setter of the Year for the 3rd straight season. She was the first Bobcat to win Setter of the Year, let alone win it 3 times in a row. She has been named to an All-MAC team every season. Second Bobcat in D1 history to reach 4,000 assists, and she had 1,053 assists this season alone. I just think that her impact cannot be understated. And you hear Kyle Robinson talk about her all the time. She has been such an impactful player, and to me, she has the biggest shoes to fill.
Look, I think Dawn's a great player. She's done a great during her career, and I don't disagree with you that she's had a big impact and that she's definitely going to be missed next year. But I'm going to go with impact over time, and I want to say Elena Giacomini. She was only here for 2 years, but during that time, she led the team in kills for both years with 502 this year and 486 last year. This year, she led in service aces with 42, and last year she led in digs with 356. She was on the All-MAC first team this year, and last year she was MAC Player of the Year in her first year in Hamden. There was a big worry last year when Ginevra Giovanni went down, and we knew that she wasn't going to be in for the whole season. But Elena came in and stepped up, and she was able to run the Bobcats offense. And even this year, when Ginevra and Elena were both on the court at the same time, you could just tell the difference automatically. And they had multiple people to go to rather than just relying on Ginevra or just relying on Elena.
So I understand your point. I think Elena Giacomini is obviously a huge part of this team and what made it what they were. But to me, Damla Ganesh, her consistency as a setter is what allowed her outside hitters to do as well as they did. But to me, she was the glue holding that team together, and that's why I think that her exit is just going to be that much more impactful.
I would say that Elena had the same consistency, and she had so much power in her arm. And Kyle Robinson would talk about all the time how great her play rate is and how she just outplays so many of the American players here in the States. I think you're going to lose that power. You're going to lose someone who you know can get a kill no matter what, and you're not going to have the offensive power that the team does this year. Yeah, I know that Elena wasn't here as long. She didn't have as much time to prove, but had she been here all 4 years, I truly think she would have broken more records after school.
Yeah, I do think I think we're just looking at it from different perspectives. I'm looking at it from the more time perspective, and you're looking at it from the power. So I do think you make a good point, though.
Nice. That was some great debate, guys. Now we have to head to our first commercial break. But when we return, our analysts will be telling us their New Year's resolutions for some of our winter sports on campus. Don't go anywhere. Bobcat Breakdown will be back in 90 seconds.
No, I'm not gambling.
Live from the piazza, it's Quinnipiac Tonight!
I tell my son, I love you every single day. Now, my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, I love you to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious moment.
Welcome back to Bobcat Breakdown. Since the new year is rapidly approaching, we're going to have Ava and Brianna give their New Year's resolutions for Quinnipiac's basketball and hockey teams heading into 2026. First up is the men's basketball team. Tom Pecora and the Bobcats have a record of 5-3, with their most recent game being a win against Stonehill, 76-62. Brianna, what are you hoping to see from the team in the new year?
Going into this year, I hope to see the team continuing to improve their defensive rebounding and sustain their three-point shooting. Samson Riley and Grant Randall have already been great with their shooting. Samson Riley has had a 6.76 3-point percentage and has gone 23-34 so far this season. And Grant Randall has had a .346 3 percentage. So I think that that's great, but they have to keep that up. I think for rebounding, I think that Sam Nosakar is going to help as he continues to get healthier and he starts playing more minutes. And I will say that Pecora did call out Jaden Zimmerman in their last game for playing 36 minutes and only having 2 rebounds. You can't have offense without defense, and that is going to come from them getting rebounds.
I think you make a good point. I went more to the depth. I think they need to start using their depth to their advantage. Tom Pecora has said multiple times that this team is incredibly deep, but they're also very top-heavy. So if they need to get consistent play from people on the bench. But if they're not going to get that consistency, they need to at least use the amount of different bodies that they have to their advantage against these tougher teams. And honestly, men's basketball is an interesting team to talk about because the games that they've lost, they're losing to good teams. It's not like they're losing bad games. They lost to St. John's, Yale, and UCF. Like, nothing raising too big of alarms yet. Plus, they managed to beat Pitt. So I'm not overly worried about this men's basketball team, and honestly, I think they have serious potential to be better than they were last year.
I do agree that I'm not really worried about them yet. I will say that even though they won against Stonehill, it wasn't necessarily a great win. I mean, Tom McClure was not happy after the win. So I do think that they have to keep playing more consistently, and they have to get better out on the defense and with the rebounding. I will say, yes, to your point, they should be using more depth, but it's also tougher to do that when they haven't necessarily been able to use all of their players just due to different reasons. So I think while it's great that they do need to use the more depth, I think that focusing on the defensive rebounding and focusing on three-point shooting is going to help them start to play more consistently and play better games.
Yes. Well, turning it over to the women's team, they are sitting at an even 3-3 record. The 77-50 win was against Colgate here in Hamden. And Ava, what does Trisha Fabry and the team need to change?
I think they need to worry about winning close games. All 3 of their losses were by less than 10 points. They lost to Rutgers by 9, they lost to St. John's by 2, and they lost to Charleston by 4. And 2 of their 3 wins were by over 20 points. They beat Yale 69-46, and you just mentioned they beat Colgate 77-50. They're struggling to hold leads in these tight games. Against St. John's, they led by 4 after 3 quarters, and then were outscored 20-14 in the 4th and ended up losing. If they can get that consistency and win these close games, they're putting themselves in a much better position for success.
I will say, yes, they do need to close out games, but that comes with playing more consistently. And for them, they've been playing well, but they need to be more consistent, and they need to fix the mental side of the ball. Basketball and really any sport is just as much as a mental game as it is a physical game. That means that they can't let themselves get ahead in their own way. Coach Trish Fabry always says it's a marathon, not a sprint. And typically at the beginning of the season, they're crawling, not sprinting. Right now, we're definitely seeing them crawl and kind of figure it out. And going into the new year, and by the time they get to the MAC championship, they have to be at that sprint. And I think it's going to be a long process to get there, but I definitely think the team can do it.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a process. And I think with winning these close games, this was a problem they had last year. The difference is they would get the edge and end up winning these closer games. And we saw how that put them in a position for success, especially late in the season last year. So I think you make a very good point. It is a mental game, but winning those close games will come with that. So I think, again, they kind of go hand in hand.
Yeah, I agree.
Now heading over to the other, colder side of the bank, the men's ice hockey team boasts an 11-3-2 record. However, their most recent game against Stonehill was close, with the Bobcats ultimately winning 3-2. Brianna, back to you. What's your resolution?
I'm going to kind of take your women's basketball and for men's hockey and say that they need to learn to finish games as well. They started off that Stonehill game with 1-0. Stonehill ended up coming back and tying it. Then they went up 2-1 against Bobcats, but Quinnipiac was able to come back and win that one by 3-2. Stonehill's record is 1-13-1. That is a game that Quinnipiac should be winning by more than 1 goal. Same thing, if you look at the Holy Cross game, they gave up 2 3-point leads in that game. You can't be letting yourselves get up the lead and start to relax and start to not play as clean and play more sloppy, and then just letting the teams come back and winning. It's going to end up kicking them down the road as they play into these tougher conference games.
You make a good point, and honestly, kind of building off of that will come with finding ways to shut down teams in the defensive end. Ram Pecknold has emphasized how he wants them to play a full 200 feet. I don't think there's been one game this season where I can say that they did that for a full 60 minutes. They gave up 6 goals to Holy Cross, who they've not lost to in 20 years. That's not a team you should be giving up 6 goals against. And yes, it's great that they scored 7 and ended up beating them in overtime, but the defensive end of their game has got to be better. Sloppy defense is the whole reason they almost lost to Stonehill. They had an own goal. So their offense has been improving. They're consistently posting a lot of shots. At the beginning of the season, those shots weren't really hitting the net, but they've started to hit the net more, and you're putting more pressure on opposing goaltenders. But they need that defensive edge to really give them an opportunity to compete at a higher level.
I agree with you. I think that they're going to start finishing games off stronger if they start playing better defense overall. I think that their other big loss this season was losing 4-2 against Yale for the first time since 2017, and they had a lead in that game to start. And they just let it go. They went up against Yale, a team that they were confident against, and they just weren't prepared, and they weren't playing to the best that they could. And we've seen them play well because we've seen them beat bigger teams this season.
Yeah, you guys are making great points. And finally, the women's ice hockey team has a record of 13-4-1 under their belt, and they are coming off a 2-0 loss against Princeton. Ava, what is your wish for Cass Turner and her team as the new year approaches?
Very simple. Depth scoring. You need people other than Kayla LaMarche to be producing offense. Because if teams find a way to shut LaMarche down, they're in trouble. if they can get more scoring from their forward. They're relying on their defense to score. Zoe Ewens is tied for 4th on the team in goals. If they get more scoring from their forwards, that takes the pressure off of LaMarche, and it gives them more opportunities to find wins against opponents. And here's a fun stat. LaMarche has scored roughly 34% of the team's goals this season, which is just insane. She has 21 of the team's 62. Second on the team is Tessa Holt with 7. So there's a clear discrepancy there. And if teams find a way to shut her down, there's going to be trouble for the women's ice hockey team.
Ava, I completely agree with you here. They have to look outside of just LaMarche for their offense, and their offense actually needs to start playing offense and not having their defense scoring more in the games than they are. I would say that Lawrence Finette and Emerson Darvin both need to step up for the team. Finette has only had 2 goals so far this season and 13 assists, and she hasn't scored since that Syracuse game back in October. And Jarvis has been quiet since the RPI game with 6, even though she has had 6 goals and 8 assists so far this season. There are 2 forwards that they need to be playing, they need to be scoring and getting off on the offensive side of the ice. And I just think that, yes, it's a team for a reason. It's a team sport. You can't just be relying on one player, and if that was the case, then yeah, LaMarche could go out and keep on doing it, but I do agree with you that teams are eventually going to find a way to shut her down. It's going to become a huge problem for them.
I agree 100%, especially as we get to the later parts of the season, and Felicia Frank has played in every game and started all but one. So we're getting to that point where she's going to start getting tired. That's just how it goes. You need more people contributing so that there can be a game where she lets up a couple goals and they can still win.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So
It's nice to see you guys agree on something. We're going to take a media timeout here at the desk, but make sure to stay with us, as when we come back, QBSN has the recap of the Women's Ice Hockey Nutmeg Tournament, and we'll be discussing men's ice hockey's non-conference performances. Bobcat Breakdown will be back shortly.
Reporting from the Grove for Q30 News.
Reporting from the Miller Library for Q30 News.
Reporting from the Mount Carmel campus for Q30 News.
Reporting on Whitney Ave for Q30 News.
You know you don't have to wear your PT gear anymore, right?
It's comfortable.
So how's civilian life treating you?
It's fine.
When I got out, I didn't want to admit that there was anything wrong because it felt like a failure. And then I realized, like, there's nothing to be ashamed of. So I started talking to someone. Maybe you are fine, but if you're not, it's okay.
Thank you.
If you or a veteran you know needs support, don't wait. Reach out. Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Here at Sports Pause, we like to have balance between having fun and working hard. Sometimes that competition we cover gets into our producing.
Tune in every Monday night at 9:30 at q30tv.com/watch for all the news, highlights, and more. This is Sports Pause.
Welcome back to Bobcat Breakdown. If you're just joining us, I'm Meg Buckley, and joined alongside me are Brianna Trachtenberg and Ava Heaton. But before we jump back into the debate, QBSN is here to recap the Quinnipiac women's ice hockey team's performance in the Nutmeg Classic.
Ewens goes in, looks for the backhand pass. LaMarche a chance there. Here's Hulk. Shot, scores! Tissel Hulk from the center slot. She puts it home right through the 5-hole of Tia Chen, and it is 1-1 here in Storrs, Connecticut. We that. They wanted a penalty, and Jarvis almost had a shot there, unable to connect with the puck. Now here's Ewens. Shot, scores! Zoe Ewens from the point. She rips it home, and we got a tie game here once again. Getting a great back check there, and it's taken away by Campbell of UConn. A 2-on-1 opportunity. Over across, backhand, scores! And the puck was in the crease, and UConn barely escapes with the win in the semifinals of the Nutmeg Classic. What a
Normally
game.
see on the power play. Watson with a shot tipped by LaMarche, and it goes in! The nation's leading goal scorer gets the Bobcats on the board, and they're up 1-0. Gets tripped up. Is there going to be a call? No calls somehow. Here comes LaMarche the other way. LaMarche gets taken out by Sacred Heart. Lapata to LaMarche. LaMarche with a lot of space. LaMarche tries to break in. Backhand shot. She scores! Kaylin LaMarche scores 2, and the only 2 so far are from her stick as the nation's leading goal scorer puts Quinnipiac up 2-0. Kaylin LaMarche scores the only 2 goals in the game, and that's all that mattered for them. They get another win in the win column. Felicia Frank gets her 5th shutout of the season and her 9th of her career, and Quinnipiac will hold on to win 2-0.
Staying on the ice, the men's ice hockey team had some big wins this season against nationally ranked opponents such as Maine, Boston College, and Boston University. However, the Bobcats have also lost and tied Alaska Fairbanks, and like mentioned earlier, had a close game against Stonehill. Now, has this non-conference schedule given you confidence or concern about the rest of the season? Ava, tell us your thoughts.
Absolutely concerned. I mean, I don't know how long their ability to beat top teams can last when they're giving up leads to unranked teams like Holy Cross and Stonehill. I can't in good faith be confident in a team who can barely beat those guys. And yes, it's great that they've beaten teams like Maine and Boston University, but it's also important to note that their one true win against Maine, because they did tie the other game, was against a Black Bears team that was not starting Albin Boya and was missing some top players. So yes, it's great that they won, but how can I trust them to beat top teams at 100%, especially when you think about playoffs? How are you going to beat teams at 100% in a playoff atmosphere? So I'm very concerned.
So I will say I don't necessarily disagree with you. There's definitely a little bit of concern heading into the rest of the season. But just to play devil's advocate here, I'm going to have to say I do still have confidence in this team. They're on a 5-game winning streak. They're not losing. It's the longest winning streak in the country currently for all of the men's ice hockey teams. And they're still nationally ranked. They are ranked 8th in the USCHO poll. That is, for a team that we've kind of been so-so on so far this season, that is still pretty good. Last season, they also were 5-5 in non-conference record. They ended up finishing at 8-2, and they still ended up finishing pretty well that season. They still won the ECAC, they finished first in the regular conference, and they still made it to the NCAA tournament. And I will say, 3 of the wins for the Bobcats have come against teams that are ranked in the top 15, with BC, Maine, and BU. Like you said, I know that Maine wasn't up to their full state, but that is still a top 15 win for Quinnipiac, and you can't put that BC and that BU game out of the picture. Those are still great wins. And it's all about how you come back from these losses and these tougher games that, yes, they may be winning, but it's not the win that we want to see. And they're coming back and they're playing well. They're playing strong. And that's what's going to end up mattering more. And they are doing well still in conference play. And what's going to matter is down the stretch is how they end up turning. And I hate to say this, ECAC hockey isn't necessarily the strongest conference. It is a great conference still. But Quinnipiac has still finished first every year. And I'm not worried about them not finishing first still.
Honestly, I am a little worried about them not finishing first. I mean, the ECAC has some serious threats this year. Look at Dartmouth. They're only 2 spots behind Quinnipiac in the USCHO right now. They're undefeated to start their season. I think when you look at their next 8 games, they have 5 that are against teams that are either ranked or within 2 spots of the top 20. Plus, after that, they go to CTIs where they have potential to play number 14 UConn. So I think this next stretch of games is going to be very telling of if they're going to even win the ECAC in the regular season, because Dartmouth, to me, poses the biggest threat to them.
I agree. I think Dartmouth is definitely the biggest competition, but I think when it comes time to play for them in Hamden, they always shut down their opponents. For the most part, they do. And I think that, yes, while they may be struggling on the road a little bit, I do still think they're playing well, and they are a young team. They have time to go. We're still only at the first half of the season. Yeah. They're going to have a full season left to play, and I honestly think that they're going to be fine. Last season, we were in the same spot. Mm-hmm. We were worried about the hockey team, and they ended up turning out just fine, and I think we're in the same case.
Yeah, not to cut you off, but it is time for our final commercial break of the night. But don't go anywhere. When we come back, we'll be giving our final roars of the night. Stay tuned.
Elmer loves to kick big feeling like when you feel happy. Make sure to celebrate when you're happy and laugh it off. Love your mind.
Everyone has a ritual, that small thing we do to keep us focused.
But what do you do to keep your head in the game?
To drown out the self-doubt and support your mental health.
Because being your best isn't just about taking care of your body.
It's about taking care of your mind and mental health.
Find the resources you need to keep your mental health a priority.
Love your mind.
Welcome back to the final Bobcat Breakdown of 2025. It's time for our final roars. I'll start us off. What makes a sport a sport? Who approves it, and why is it them who gets to do so? Growing up with a cheer background, people always told me their opinions about whether cheer was a sport, no matter if I asked for it or not. It left me wondering, who has the power to make something a sport, if that's even possible? Is it the NCAA? Acrobatics and tumbling has been growing exponentially in recent years, being named an emerging sport by the NCAA in 2020 and set to have its inaugural National Collegiate Championship in the spring of 2026. But acrobatics and tumbling has been around a lot longer than that. It's been at Quinnipiac since 2009. But that hasn't stopped countless athletes from participating in the sport and building it into what it is today. So my overall message is for those who get met with a glare anytime they mention their sport, who say something else entirely to forego over-explaining themselves. Those experiences shouldn't stop anyone from doing or talking about something they love, because isn't that the best part about sports in general? Sports are played because people are driven, creative, and have the utmost love for what they do, and that they get to do it with other people. And acrobatics and tumbling is a perfect example of working together to be a part of something bigger than yourself. Don't get me wrong, it's great they're getting recognized because they deserve it, but getting recognized isn't the end-all be-all. Let's not forget about all the work and effort that was put in by people to get to that point.
This season, the men's ice hockey team welcomed 10 first-years into Hamden. 7 of these first-years came in, capitalizing on the new rule change allowing for players with experience in the Canadian Hockey League to play NCAA hockey. These players have made their presence felt in the first months of this season. Marcus Vidicek and Antonin Vereau both came in from the QMJHL and have proven to be huge assets to the Bobcats. Vidicek is averaging a point per game, tied for the longest active point streak in the NCAA, while Vereau has registered 11 points in 16 games, taking on a huge role. This rule change is not only representative of how NCAA hockey is willing to adapt, but also how Quinnipiac is at the forefront of it all. Head coach Ram Pecknold has spoken about Quinnipiac's willingness to adapt and how that puts them in a position for success. So, while the Bobcats are one of the first teams to capitalize greatly on rule changes such as this one, they certainly won't be the last, although the speed in which they adapt definitely gives them a head start.
With this being the last show of Bobcat Breakdown for the fall semester, it officially marks the halfway point of the school year. While it can be easy to get wrapped up in the excitement of the winter holidays and the end of the fall semester, this is also a time where students and athletes can look back on what they have accomplished so far and set goals for what's to come. For the winter sports teams here on campus, this also marks about the midway point of their seasons. This is the point where teams decide how they're going to look the rest of the season, and fans start to question if their team is playoff ready and what it's going to take to get there. Quinnipiac men's ice hockey head coach Ram Pecknold often talks about his team needing to buy into the program, to the culture, and to each other. While we may not all be competing at the D1 level, this still applies for everyone. Don't be afraid to buy into the Quinnipiac student experience. Go to the games, join a club, and hang out with your friends. Make every moment count. College is a time for taking risks and pushing yourself to the next level. Whether you consider this past semester good or bad, don't let yourself settle. It can be easy to get into a rhythm and not try anything new. As you look ahead to next spring, think about what change you want to make.
That's all the time we have here for tonight for Bobcat Breakdown. Thank you for tuning in and spending your evening and semester with us. We'll be right back here in Studio 125 on January 27th. Make sure to follow us on Instagram and X at Q30 Sports and check out our website at Q30TV.com. Thank you to the producers and everyone working hard behind the scenes. For Brianna Trachtenberg and Ava Heaton, I'm Meg Buckley. Have a great winter break, Bobcats.